Hi there, my name is Audry Melnik from Funnel Ventures, and I'm here to talk to you about the convergence of product-led growth, SaaS, and customer data platforms. So today we're going to go over how customer data platforms can enable product-led growth SaaS companies through a methodology called customer journey optimization, the key components of that methodology, and some playbook examples from that methodology that you can take into your business. So let's start with product-led growth. A product-led growth strategy relies on a no-touch sales model where users try the product and get to their aha moment independent of a person-to-person sales process. So from a systems perspective, the key to a successful product-led growth strategy is understanding what will move the needle on your key metrics. That requires an approach that allows for experimentation so we can test out our hypotheses on what will inch the metrics in the right direction and enable us to learn from those experiments. From there, we can double down on the successful tactics. And what we want to be able to do is deploy personalized customer journeys and build an experimentation framework around that. So from a systems perspective, we want to have a lot of discipline around the analytics that we're capturing so that we have that baseline and to be able to execute on our experiments quickly without being hindered by the never-ending development backlog. Now, SaaS. So SaaS to me means implementing a subscription billing solution that tightly integrates with your product such that when a new user signs up, they're created in your billing system on a trial or a freemium plan. And depending on the pricing model, product usage is linked into the billing system. So as usage increases on that core value metric, pricing or the cost of the plan increases as well. Billing lifecycle events have an impact on the product and can restrict access to usage and remind users of failed payments in the dunning process, etc. And then billing integration is really important in a product-led growth company where, like the sales process, the billing process should be mostly hands-off. So that brings us to product-led growth and SaaS together. So when we bring them together, we want to be smart about crafting the customer journey and presenting the right message at the right time. And so these are some of the questions that might come up for product-led SaaS companies. What actions is my customer taking to reach their aha moment? How can I create experiments on the customer journey rapidly? How can I consolidate everything I have about a customer into a 360-degree view of a customer? How can I treat all the users in one account as a connected entity and understand the performance of the entire account? How can I connect an anonymous pre-sign-up user and their activities with a user that has signed up and all of those activities? How can I orchestrate a personalized journey for customers? How can I connect third-party data with first-party data? And how can I retarget customers based on actions in my product? Obviously, these are not the only questions that come up, but they're some of the key things that arise for companies who want to build those customer journeys and build personalization into that for those customers. So that brings us to the customer data platform. And the customer data platform is an enabler for all of those questions. So what a customer data platform does is it provides that customer data collection from disparate sources. It knits them together into a unified identity using identity resolution. It allows then, because you're knitting all of that together, to see the full set of activities that user or that account has performed. And then enables you to trigger activation on that data, whether that's inside the customer data platform or in other destination tools. It allows you to consolidate by account, so all the users get to be grouped into an account. And allows you to create calculated fields as well. Some of these tools are really good at that at the user level and at the account level. It provides standards governance and privacy compliance, which in this day and age is really important. Because you're capturing all of this data, it is then a precursor to really push that into predictive analytics and get some predictions out of that data. And it also allows you to enrich it using tools like Clearbit. So what you end up with is this 360-degree view of a customer. And one other thing that I really like about the concept of this customer data platform is that it allows you to do system decoupling, meaning let's say you wanted to switch out one tool for another, you can do that pretty easily without having to get a lot of software development involved. So with the customer data platform, we can enable that complete view of the customer in our activation tools and enable that rapid experimentation. Okay, so that's how these three different concepts are brought together to empower your engine for growth. Product-led growth defines what you should be doing. SaaS adds extra journey events to a product-led growth company, and with the right pricing strategy, these two concepts can be really powerful. However, without the how of what you want to achieve with product-led growth, your company isn't going to go anywhere very fast. With the customer data platform, however, you have the key to being able to facilitate that growth trajectory. It allows you to compile that 360-degree view of each customer and a path to connecting with your other tools to activate the customer journey, enabling you to create your experiments and test them out very quickly. So all you need now is someone to design that first iteration of the customer journey, evaluate and connect all the right tools that enable you to construct and measure your experiments. So you don't need to get the developer involved, because waiting on the development lifecycle is going to make the process really too slow. So this approach melds these concepts together and enables you to move faster to convert and retain customers. And that methodology is called customer journey optimization. So, customer journey optimization reduces the cost to acquire and retain a customer and increases lifetime value without developer involvement. Sounds too good to be true, I know. Success for me when working with my clients is getting them to the point where they can be primed to achieve hockey stick growth. But to get there, you need to achieve these other milestones. The first step involves aggregating as much of the customer profile information and activity as you can into a central place. At the same time, we want to start moving business logic out of your application's code base and instead make all that information available from your software into other tools. So the business rules can be owned and managed in tools that the non-technical team can own, allowing them to experiment and iterate on those. The result of doing that is that you then have a lot of bottlenecks removed because you're less reliant on getting the developer to implement your experiments. It won't be the case for every experiment you make, but about 80% could very likely be released from their reliance on developer involvement. Once that's done, you're in a much healthier position to achieve your rapid experimentation and iterate on the customer journey. So no matter how good your initial version of the customer journey is, it won't be your last. By establishing a baseline of your metrics and then implementing an experiment, you'll be able to move through this iteration cycle for each experiment that you perform. How many experiments you're able to get through will depend on how you set up your stack to enable them and move fast. So they have a saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the default strategy for most initiatives in startups is to get the developer to implement them. But there are plenty of tools out there now that can accomplish a lot of the implementation changes you want to make without involving your developer. So by adding these tools into your stack, we're giving you more tools for your toolbox. And next time you want to implement an experiment, you have more than just one way to execute it and can most likely do it faster without involving your developer. Okay, so the customer journey optimization has a toolkit, has these four main components: the customer funnel, fit for purpose tools, the complete view of a customer, and playbooks. So you might recall this, this funnel here. It's the Pirate Metrics funnel. It's a very famous funnel designed by Dave McClure of 500 Startups. Now, when I was working on my startup, I would look at this and it didn't really give me what I really needed. It was more of an after the fact look. What I really wanted was something that could help instruct me on what I needed to do around that customer journey. So that's why I devised this customer funnel. It has 8 stages. It has, and every stage of the funnel has a goal and a set of tools and practices that we leverage for that stage. So discovery, familiarity, trial, support, purchase, upsell, retain, and refer. These are each of the goals for those stages. So for discovery, it's getting the user to discover your product. For familiarity, it's getting the user to sign up for a trial or purchase. For trial, it's getting the user to convert to a paying customer. Support is educate the user and respond to questions and issues in a scalable manner. For purchase, it's support subscription and payment. For upsell, it's encourage greater spend. For retain, it's retain customers longer. And for refer, it's get new customers from current customers and partners. And the power behind this is what I've experienced when I work with my clients, is to really kind of hone in on what are the phases of the funnel that we really need to focus on right now. And that gives us a framework for the project scope. It really kind of helps to understand what you're trying to achieve and where you want to focus, because you can't do everything at once. Okay, so we're in a product-led growth summit right now, and this is just really showing you, like, there are obviously multiple growth playbooks, and when we want to move towards a product-led growth playbook, it's close to no touch, and we want to think about how we can make everything as little touch as possible. And when we meld that with our customer funnel, this just shows you where you want to focus. So for the sales-led growth strategies, there's obviously a lot more hand-holding done in the earlier stages of the funnel. Whereas with product-led growth, every stage of the funnel can be done using automation. So here are some principles and practices that we use in the customer journey optimization methodology. The first one is leveraging fit-for-purpose tools together and integrate them via a customer data platform. I'm not a big fan of using these big monolith applications that say they do a lot but don't do anything very well. I won't mention their names, but I think it's much better to be able to choose the best of breed tools that are out there and connect them using the customer data platform. That way you're not compromising on functionality for integration. So what that looks like is something like this, where we have a person using our app over here, and when they're doing different things, we're capturing who they are and the behavioral events of what they're doing and pushing that data into this customer data platform. And then any of these tools that we have sitting connected to that customer data platform as a destination knows how to receive and consume the information. So these platforms basically receive information from your app that you're sending, and then it's like publish and subscribe model, where they publish that information out to all these tools, and those tools know how to pull them in. So you're not having to build point-to-point interfaces with all of these tools. Components should be replaceable. So let's say I want to replace my help desk solution from Help Scout to Zendesk. Now with this architecture, I can easily pull one out and plug one back in without having to get a developer involved, which is, when you don't have to compete with the backlog, you can get that done much faster. Business rules should be changeable by the business and not live in code. So kind of talked about this a little bit already, but basically in everyone's effort to try and move really fast, we often just put things into code. But what that does is exacerbate the developer bottleneck when we want to make changes to it. And so if it's anything that is something that we might want to experiment with, or make changes to, ideally it should not live in code, and it should be implemented in a tool that the non-technical team members can action. Same goes for number 5. So there's a lot of guiding content tools out there that provide tooltips and walkthroughs and in-app prompts and messages and modals and those kinds of things that we can now leverage in our app instead of having it custom built by a developer. That way, and because we're never going to have the customer journey right on day one, we can experiment and iterate on that without having to get the developer involved. Number 6, don't distract the developer. So it's my belief that the developer should be focused on building the core product, not on converting the customer. That is the job of your customer success, your marketing, your product people. And lastly, experiment with pricing plans. So if you don't have a structure that enables you to do easier experimentation around the pricing plans, then it will be kind of pushed off to the back in light of other priorities that the developer has to do. So if we can liberate the pricing plans as well from the developer backlog, then that's really powerful as well. Okay, so we talked about this. What we want to do is create a complete view of a customer in each of these destination tools, not just in the customer data platform, but in all the destination tools, so that we can then build those journeys. So this slide is just showing you screenshots of what that might look like in a marketing automation tool called Drip on the left, and then in an analytics tool called Amplitude, which is on the right. So I want to talk to you about an example of, 2 ways you can implement something, which will show you more about what I'm talking about in terms of like not implementing things with code. So this is an example where we've got a referral offer, and we want to provide the ability for our users to refer friends to the app, and those people can get a free month, and they would also get a free month. So we have a dialogue here where they can put in a bunch of their friends. They can edit the content of the email, and then they would hit send. So the traditional way of doing that would be to basically have the code loop through the recipients of that referral offer, and use something like SendGrid and putting a hard-coded HTML email into that through SendGrid. Now, that's a quick way to do it, but what happens is what happens when we want to make changes to that email that gets sent? What happens if we want to do other things like send reminders if no one opened the email and those kinds of things? We can't really do it without having to get a developer involved. So here's how we do it instead. Instead of the software looping through and just sending that email through SendGrid, we loop through and send an event for every recipient to a customer data platform like Segment. Then Segment will pass that information on to any of the destination tools that's got connected, like Amplitude for analytics and Drip for marketing automation. And we have an event that has been sent through called referred by user. And you can see here in Drip, what we're doing is we're saying, when this event comes in, referred by user, send them this email campaign, invite to folio. That's a really simple implementation of it. But there is some complexity in there as well, because what we're doing is, this is what the email looks like. It's capturing the email text that's been sent, this email text here that's being sent in the event through Segment, and it's putting that in there. And it's also putting in the offer, the details of the offer, which we're able to set up as a reusable snippet in Drip to, and depending on the different offer value that comes through, we'll put in the different offer text. So that's another way to do things that will give you more flexibility in how you can experiment in that journey down the track. So these are the types of things that we can make change or experiment with without developer involvement. We can add additional subsequent Drip emails to those invitees. We can modify the structure and content of those emails. We can change the time between emails. We can add split testing of the email campaigns. We can include if statements into the emails, maybe like present a different logo based on the vertical that they're in. We can switch the offer based on the Segment event data or another business rule in Drip. We can remove them from the Drip campaign once that user signs up. We can change the button link parameters as needed. So we've got some analytics stuff in there. And then some additional stuff, we can basically obviously push that segment event into Amplitude for funnel analytics. We can track the email delivery opens and clicks back into segment and in Amplitude as well. And we can push all this activity to a data warehouse and do all sorts of stuff with it after that. Another tool I like is called AppQues. And AppQues has a lot of functionality around onboarding and feature gating and tooltips and pop-ups. They also have NPS and checklists, and they're always adding more functionality. What's really good is that you can say you want to show this particular flow on AppQues flow, they're called, to users who may not have logged in the last 3 months, or who haven't done X but have done Y. And so you can basically build that kind of personalized journey based on what they haven't done, because remember, you want to push them towards that aha moment. And if they've done one thing but they haven't done another, that's a trigger for like, okay, well, maybe we need to get them to see the value of this functionality before giving up on them. Maybe that, maybe they'll upgrade or they'll convert from the trial, etc. And the other nice thing about it is you can see here, you can put the user content into the dialogues as well, so you can make it feel really personalized. So here's another playbook I wanted to just kind of go through. This is really just showing you like the two kind of events that a user would probably do in a SaaS application, the trial sign up and then the trial conversion. So if you can see here, this is the way we design playbooks, and we have the different systems that we'll be using and how they interact with each other. So let's say a user registers in your app, and then that pushes into Stripe to create that customer and the subscription, Stripe being the subscription billing solution. And then what we can do is we can listen for those events out of Stripe and push that information through Segment, which is the customer data platform. So the customer created event and the subscription created event. And then that information, the subscription created event, can be pushed into Drip and AppQues to trigger different things. So in Drip, that would be adding them to a trial email campaign. So it'd be a Drip campaign of several emails. And in AppQues, we can add them into kind of like a trialing segment where we would display the trial conversion modal, where it might say something to say, hey, you've got X number of days left on your trial, something like that. And then when they do convert and they're in your app and they've selected the plan and added their card details, we would capture that in Stripe, and then Stripe would record those particular events and then push that out to Segment. And then in these drip tools, in our activation tools, so in AppQues, we would remove them from that display of that trial conversion modal. So we want to make sure that, okay, they're no longer needing to see that particular modal because they've actually signed up. So we don't want to say, hey, you've got X number of days left on your trial. And in Drip, we want to remove them from that trial campaign, which might say similar things, and add them to another email campaign that's just for newly signed up customers who are actually paying. Some of the other things that you can do in a customer data platform tool, this is specifically segment functionality, but when I talked about like calculated fields, so you can figure out like the lifetime value or the most frequently used feature that they have, the last product they viewed, those kinds of things. And you can calculate that and use that in your activation tools to really connect with them, and whether that be email or in-app messages or whatever. You can also create centralized audience segments. So that's really powerful in terms of like having a unified view of those segments across all of your activation tools. And you can do calculated fields at the account level, which if you have a B2B solution, where you've got multiple users in an account, this can be really powerful to identify champions in an account or raise competition in an account and predict churn at the account level. So that was a little bit of an introduction into customer data platforms and how they can help your product-led growth SaaS company through the methodology of customer journey optimization. We talked about some of the key components and concepts, and I went through a couple of playbook examples. A bit about me and my company. It's called Funnel Ventures. We do customer journey optimization consulting and advisory, and subscription billing, assessments, and consulting and advisory as well. That's the end of my talk. If you'd like to connect with me on Twitter, at Funnel Ventures and at Audry Melnik, and if you'd like to email me, and I'd love to talk with you about any challenges you're having, my email is audrey@funnelventures.com. Thank you.